Greetings.
Greetings.
Hello, hello. Happy MLK Day to everyone.
Happy MLK Day to you.
Thank you so much for coming out on this very frigid night. And welcome to our second edition of the State of Black Saginaw. We got a great response last year from this forum. We came out of this forum with some great charges to go forward in 2024, and we saw how the election went. We'll get into that. But that forum set the tone for that year. And so this forum is set for us to set the pace for 2025 and what we need to do going forward as Black Saginaw. And again, I appreciate you for your time. We'll move forward. I know we got started late. I wanted to make sure that everybody got in okay. Just to let you know, we have snacks and drinks over on the far wall over here, and the restrooms are in the rear, just so you know. Without further ado, it's the director who's going to lead us in prayer, Mr. Hurlington Cole.
Invoke God's assistance and blessing on tonight. We all make up this wonderful community. Well, tonight we thank you for the essence of why we're here. We thank you. We honor the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We honor what he stood for. We honor, Lord, the fact that when he died, Lord, that he left seeds that have been planted all across this nation, all across this world. And Lord, we thank you for to put this together. We just ask you for your blessing on tonight. We ask you that you would help us, Lord, to be transparent, to talk, and to see perspectives that we may not have seen before. Let us open up doors of possibility. Let us open up doors of opportunity. And Lord, at the end of the day, Lord, let this be about the future of what we want to see, Lord, in our community. Lord, the future for our children, the future for our children's children. Lord, direction and strategy on what to do for the next election, what to do for the next set of decisions that have to be made. So we thank you for every person that asks a question. We thank you for our facilitator. We thank you for Dr. Henning for all the things that she's doing.
It's a vital celebration of women's contributions to society. As a Black woman, Dr. Henning has navigated the intersection of race and gender throughout her career, overcoming the challenges of underestimation and systemic invisibility. She has embraced her identity with confidence, prioritizing her own joy and authenticity over the limiting perceptions of others. Without further ado, I bring you our moderator, Dr. Dawn.
Talk with you guys about, I'm not going to talk to you, but talk with you about what's happening here in Saginaw as it relates to our Black community. So we have some amazing folks who have agreed and have done some research and agreed to share that knowledge with us. And we're going to start with, all right. Folks, we're going to talk about Black leadership, Black health, and then also Black dollars. In my mind, the way that this is going to work, we'll have somebody come up and they will share the topic that they've researched. There'll be opportunities for you to discuss and have questions immediately following so that you don't lose what they've been talking about. And then I have a couple questions for you as well as it relates to those topics, right? So I'm going to bring up our first speaker, and it is none other than our very own Vanessa Guerra, who's going to talk with us about voting.
Here a few presentations throughout last year, so I'm excited to kick things off. What we're going to do today is talk about post-election. There are some elections in 2025 that I will touch on, but we're really going to dig into the data about who came out to vote, how old were they, what gender were they. Some data that I don't have is race and ethnicity. We don't collect that through the state's database that's accessible to county clerks, so I cannot break that part down for you. But we're still get a good sense of who's coming out to vote. What you won't find here, the county clerk is a nonpartisan office, and so it's really going to be about who's turning out to vote, regardless of how they're turning out to vote. But I do have a slide that I think tells us a lot about who turned out to vote and what party they voted for. So the very first slide here is Saginaw County turnout over the past four major presidential elections, 60% turnout. And in 2020, it went up to 66, and then it dropped just slightly in November of 2024 at 65%. And part of the huge jump from November 2016 to November 2020 is that if you recall that nearly everyone in Michigan gets automatically registered unless you choose to opt out, which most people don't choose to opt out. So we have a high voter registration percentage here in Saginaw. I like to point that out because this is a civic group, and I know there's a lot of civic-minded people in the crowd. And so when it comes election time, a lot of times we talk about voter registration within the last 30 days. If, the closer we get to election day, you can ask them 30 days, the last 60 days, because it matters where you're registered. What we see a lot is that people who live in the city, for example, think because they move from one house to another, but it's still in the city, that they don't need to update their address. But you do, because we all live in specific precincts. So when you think about voter registration moving forward, still reach out to those people who are already registered and ask them if they've updated their address. Okay, so this one right here shows kind of how we compare statewide. Michigan had a record turnout in 2024. We had 6.7 million people turn out. 5.7 million people, I'm sorry. Of the 83 counties that we had, them saw moderate to significant growth in the number of people who turned out to vote, and 25 saw moderate to significant decline. So more of our counties saw growth than they did decline, which explains why we had such a high voter turnout in 2024. And you can also kind of see, this is kind of as partisan as it gets, where the votes were. So in the southeast side of the state, so that's Washtenaw, Wayne, Oak, and Mitten, with the exception of one county, all of them saw an increase in the number of people who turned out to vote in 2024. And the one thing I'd like to note about that is that those are small counties in the north, but every single vote counts. So all those small counties added up to a big win for Republicans, because it tends to be a more Republican area. Next slide. This is kind of a repeat of the last one. We'll go to the next one. Thank you. Okay, so this is specific to Saginaw County. This shows our 30 jurisdictions. Turnout percentage was in Frankenmuth Township. They had an 87% voter turnout rate. But important to note here, the population of 1,500, so the smaller township, and so that does contribute to why their percentage is so high. A community where we need to do some work is Buena Vista. Buena Vista was our lowest turnout percentage throughout the county. But overall, Saginaw County did well. Of our 30 jurisdictions, we had 3 that had more than 80% turnout in their communities. We had 16 that were between majority, were above 60% here in Saginaw County. Next slide. So countywide, this is showed out by the numbers. We had across by gender, 46% of our voters who turned out were men, and 54% were women. So women beat out men by 8 points across the county, which is comparable to our statewide turnout. In general, there were more women who voted in 2024 than there were men. The turnout by age, the bulk of our voters, which again, not a surprise, was the 51 to the 60 and up crowd. That was 56% of people who voted in 2024 in Saginaw County. The 18 to 30 crowd represented a 16% turnout, and the 31 to 50 crowd represented a 28% turnout. This is specific. Jeff had asked that I look at a few specific jurisdictions. This here is Saginaw City. So in the city, you see that we have 5 precincts that had a 30 to 39% turnout. We have 7 precincts, 56%, 58% were women, and 42% were men. So women beat out men by 16 whole percentage points in the city of Saginaw. And one thing I do want to mention on here, and mention with any of the voter turnout that we're looking at, is that I see my job as county clerk to educate voters about where their precincts are, what's on the ballot. But myself and even civic groups can only do so much about voter turnout, right? There's also a role for candidates to play. And if candidates are not necessarily getting out the right message or campaigning in a way that lets people know who they are, that plays into voter turnout as well. seem like the city has terrible turnout, we're always gonna have terrible turnout. Candidates play a big role in this, and I think it's important to remember that when we're looking at this data. This is Saginaw Township. Saginaw Township had one precinct that was in the 50-59% turnout, 3 that were in the 60 to 69% turnout range, and 10 that were in the 70 to 79% turnout, and one precinct that hit over 80%. In Saginaw Township, women also voted more than men, to the tune of 55% turnout for women and 45% turnout for men. Next slide. And then this is Saginaw Township by age. Both of them pretty similar. Our 51 to 60 and up crowd made up the bulk of voters in both the city and in Saginaw Township. And they were almost exactly the same percentages for the 18 to 30 crowd. In the city and in the township at 17%. In the city, the 31% were 31 to 50 years old, and in Saginaw Township, 31 to 50-year-old population made up 27%. Next slide. This one's Buena Vista. Buena Vista had 59%, 18 to 30 was 15%, and 31 to 50 was 28%. It had a 43% turnout, and precinct 3 had a 41% turnout. Okay, so now we're going to focus just on early voting. This is the first year in which we had the 9 days of early in-person voting. And what we saw was that Saginaw County still, really quickly. Saginaw County had really likes election day. We like to come vote in person on election day. We had a 52% of all the ways that you can vote. Because remember, you can do the 9 days. You can do absentee voting, or you can do election day voting. The majority of our people voted on election day, to the tune of 52%. But you could look at the state, only 36% across the state used actual election day voting. Across the state, they preferred absentee voting, but we also like absentee voting here in Saginaw County on the left. We had 39% of the way people voted was by absentee, and early voting we had 9%. So statewide, more people voted the 9 days early voting than we did here in Saginaw County, but it was the first time, and I think we'll continue to see that to grow. Go back. Okay, so I wanted to show this one. On the left are similarly sized counties. So anytime we talk about Saginaw County and we're looking at data, they always ask who are your comparing are Muskegon and Livingston. So Muskegon had about a 15% of their voters use the 9 days of early voting. In Livingston, 30% of their voters used the 9 days. And in Saginaw, only 9% of their voters used the 9 days. Some really important points here though. In Livingston County, in Muskegon County, they're similar to us where they have one county-run site, but they also have one township who runs early voting all on their own. In Livingston County, they have nearly 18 laws written. Your local township can run it. So their local townships chose to run it all by themselves. So they don't have a single site. They have township sites throughout the county. So naturally, if you have an early voting site in your backyard, you're probably more inclined to vote during the 9 days of early voting at your township, and that's why their percentage is so high. But Bay and Midland counties on the right are similar to us where they have one center, one location. Their turnout is higher, but their overall turnout was higher than Saginaw County. People turning out to go in 2024 than Saginaw County did.
Vanessa,
Yes.
we want to create some opportunity for people to ask questions of
Yeah.
you, and then we also have like 3 other topics.
Okay.
So I'm going to give you like 2 more minutes,
Okay.
and then we're going to open it up for questions.
Let's go to the next slide. This is the last one that's important that I want to show. This is the raw data of who actually used the early vote center. So overwhelmingly, our voters came from Saginaw Township and from the city of Saginaw. And then after that, it follows our population centers, which is City of Saginaw, Saginaw Township, Thomas Township, Bridgeport Township, and then Chippewassee and Buena Vista kind of shared that 5th place. And those are our largest communities. So it made sense that the larger the community was, the more inclined they were to utilize the 9 days of early voting. So I'll end it there, because that's probably the most important data to share with this group. And
It was.
But it's important.
Our county clerk. I think the data that she shared is really important. I don't know that we have the opportunity to see this data in other spaces. So we want to make sure that Vanessa is here for a few minutes to ask questions of. But I do have a question for you. So you guys don't have, I have lots of questions. Y'all see my thing? I have lots of questions. So one of the things that we saw with the data that Vanessa shared is that people over 50 are voting. Did y'all see that? People over 50 are voting. What is it that we can do in order to increase young voter turnout? We saw the data as related to those people who were 18 to 20? 18 to 30.
Yeah.
Like 16, 17%
Yes.
of those who voted were in that age group. What are we doing? What are we doing in order to engage those folks? What are your thoughts? What do we need to do? Who do we need to talk to? Whose door do I need to knock on? Beautiful.
I think that we should start focusing on the income-based housing areas where those individuals are often left out. And even during this whole campaign of the 24 election, everybody talked about the middle class, and yet nobody even focused on the poor or the marginalized community. And I think that that's where we're going wrong. And I know that we can gather a lot of numbers if we focus on the low income and the poor areas.
So nobody is asking those questions. Nobody's reaching out to those populations. Are any of us familiar with work that's being done to young people, getting them out to vote? What did we do this year? Did we do anything in order to reach that population? What should we have done? You know, we have like lots of thought, huh?
You're talking about the younger generation. I think that social media, everybody's on their phones. And so I think we have to build a platform to where, that they can get the information to them. They use all these different platforms, TikTok, Facebook, these different platforms. But, there's so much information on those platforms that's not true, or fake or whatever, fake news and things of that nature. So I think we have to probably build a platform to where it's easy access by the phone, they on their phone, and they can go somewhere and say, okay, this is, especially when it comes to local politics, because you have so much, when it comes to, at the top. But when it comes to our own city, I think that we can offer something that can, where it can be easy.
Enough in order to reach our young people. Are we doing enough? Do they even feel like we're relevant anymore? Do you know what I'm saying?
I would ask, how did the turnout in that age group this past election compare to the year that Obama ran?
Oh, listen.
The second thing I would say is that Kamala had 3 months and 90 days. For those familiar with elections in Saginaw County, the on-the-ground structure put together by the Democratic Party and the unions was not there this time around.
I don't have the data, and this is me personally. He was a candidate that really spoke to me, and so I think he spoke to a lot of people, and that's why candidates are important. That they are part of voter turnout. If we don't necessarily have good candidates, and I'm not saying that Kamala was not a good candidate, but if we don't have candidates that have a lot of time to campaign or are strong, we're also not going to get turnout. Which is why I like the point that this woman made about even if the campaigns aren't talking about those things, we can still be talking about those things. So if they're not reaching low-income voters or people that are living in low-income housing.
We have a different era of young people who don't receive communication in the way in which we receive communication. And quite frankly, like nobody did any mock voting, which is what these young people need to see a role model, to have a full understanding of what it looks like. And we talk about the young people in their phones and social media, but that's where they are at. And some of them show up brain dead on arrival if you don't show them and put in the motion of what that looked like. Talking to them, they still don't grasp the concept. So I don't think I see any initiatives where people were doing a mock, like this is what it means to go vote when you go vote. This is what it looks like. This is what it be like. This is what the jargon means or the verbiage means in a young person's terminology. No, we did not do enough to reach our young people. Some of us parents took our daughters or our sons, and they still didn't know what was going on. Hence my children. So as a community, pushing that initiative, could we have done more? I don't know what that looks like because the funding and the effort and the give back and the transportation. But overall, no, we didn't do nearly enough to reach the young people, which is where the vote really mattered. Because a mass of young people did not care to vote at all.
Our different kind of generation. We're on social media 24. Social media is a good way to reach us, but you have to like explain it to us, not to say our generation is slower if you haven't noticed that. So you have to show us the impact, what it's gonna look like when you vote for, who you're voting for. Because when I went and voted this year, I didn't even know who half the people were on there. I knew it was Trump and it was Kamala and that was it. I didn't know who anyone else was because there wasn't enough information about those other people. As for ideas, social media is a good way, but we gotta get to the schools, the high schools and colleges. You know, voting, like parties, I wouldn't say parties, but like events like this, explain to kids what's going on, who you're voting for, what they do, I feel would help a lot. But this is just my opinion on it, because I know my generation pretty well.
Her question. That Vanessa does a good job. At Saginaw Valley, we had the voting machines come out of Saginaw Valley, and we walked some students through actually pushing them, filling out the little squares and then putting your little form in. We walked some students through that, so that's a possibility. I think we need to really explore that a bit more.
Relationship with young people before I want something or, want to have them do something. They're more apt to come out or listen at least to what we have to say. When you want something from them, they want to engage with you before that. So what we have to do is do what we have to do before we ask them, and try to tell them something else or how to do something else. That's just my opinion and me working with young people for many people.
One thing we did do this year is we engaged 53 kids from Saginaw United in a mark voting, and they got a community town hall with their school board candidates. So they got to ask all the questions, they ran the forum, they did the work. We were in support. But I would like to see a lot more of that going on from many different angles, especially college age too, because
a young person won a seat. And so as we talk about how to engage our young people, we do have some answers right in front of us. And I would ask our clerk to really try to think about how can we unpack that result and that success and then turn around and be able to use it again in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point. So I think having young candidates, inspiring them to run for office is a big thing. So somebody had to ask her. I know that she had a good relationship with our Levy Township clerk, and she was encouraged by lots of people that she should run because she had been thinking about a while. So we're talking about engaging with youth. We also need to be talking about engaging them and encouraging them to take on leadership roles because they have just as many ideas, especially at the school board level. They recently left high school, so they can really contribute to those boards. And
that is wonderful. I'm sorry.
Engaging them early on is dead on. So, I work with the AKAs a lot. There's some other Black sororities that I work with who, throughout the year, they hold events, and then they just let me pop in for one little special event that has to do with elections, because they've already built that relationship with those students instead of me just coming in every 4 years. Students don't know me, and I can't get out there all the time, but they built that relationship throughout the school year that then, when I come to talk about elections, it goes a lot better than when I just show up all on my own. Thank you.
So it seems like we came up with young people early, right? Figuring out where they are and not only going when we need something from them. I see your hand, and you're going to be my first one when we come to the next one. But what I want us to do, because this is a perfect opportunity to kind of transition into the leadership piece, as we're talking about the young woman who ran for an office in the township, and we all saw what happened, right? So I want to bring it up. I believe it's Ms. Wools who's going to talk about Black leadership in Saginaw County, and then we'll come out with an opportunity for us to engage in that. All right? All right. Let's give it up for Ms. Wools.
We have new elected officials at the city council level. We have a few in attendance here today. We've had and were elected new school board members, city council members, as I just said, county commissioners as well. As far as black leadership in business, there's an uptick of a rise in new black-owned businesses, and also in academia. There's a growing number of black faculty, and that's kind of a general snapshot of what we see, at least on the top end. Now, with that, there are some challenges. And the challenges that we see, there are representation gaps. So despite progress, black leadership remains underrepresented in many powerful positions. And even despite positions held by black people in K-12 and higher ed and in other areas, black students continue to be undereducated and overpunished. We have to deal with that. There is a huge lack of black male teachers in the classroom as well. That's something that we've seen and want to address as well. There are systemic barriers. There's still systemic racism in the system, so some of this is built into the system. There's systemic racism and discrimination that continue to hinder the advancement of black leaders. And something that we just touched on with young people, there's a huge need. And that's something that's personal for me. I feel that, young people that learn how to, cultivate a social justice movement, they learn something about themselves, and they learn something outside of their realm. It broadens their horizons, and once we do that with our young people, they're able to advocate for themselves. There's a lot of things that happen in our school systems, in the city, beyond, whether it's policing, we talk about violence, all of those things. Well, who's missing from that conversation? Young people. We talk about young people. We say what they should do, what they shouldn't do, so on and so forth. But we need to hear from them, from their perspective. Dr. Henry, take that.
The issue that we're going to address tonight, let's kind of go back to the home. We can talk about what's supposed to be done in school. We can talk about what's supposed to be done in the community. But as I sit around here, the people who are doing and lifting have their families here. As institutions, there's no question about whether or not your kids are going to vote because they come to the polls. My daughter's 31. We go to the polls together. If I can catch my son, I ran up with him. What we're looking at and not addressing, just alluded to, we're looking at the breakdown of family structures. If we're going to be honest, because 18 to 30, Saginaw's a family time. If we're looking at the institutions to fix what the families are not doing, we're going to be in bigger trouble. Because they're disengaged from the family. Because social media is the new parent. This situation exists because we've let the digital divide the family inside. There's no structure in a lot of different families. There's somebody who works in schools. Kids have options of whether or not they're going to come to school. Parents push back. I want my kids home back. But you ain't coming to the parent-teacher conference. Bring back connectivity with our community. We're going to have the same problems. We're not going to address the root.
Right.
Every social element we have is the family. I don't care what we're about to address on here. It's going to go back to the home. So the question for me is, how do we, us with families, recreate this model, promote this model of what we got in this room to the broader population? How do we wake up and re-engage parents, families? How do we get them to put the phones down and actually come alive? That's the issue with the voting. Every particular agenda item we're going to deal with you're dealing with the culture. Culture starts at home. And if it doesn't start at home, it's going to start right from home. Yeah? What are the young people saying? What's the big slogan out here? I am not my ancestors. I will F you up. First time I heard that, I was furious, and then I said, ooh, I got to take a step back, because there's something I haven't been sharp enough, and people don't know who their ancestors are. If they don't know how strong their ancestors are, if they miss that connection, I'm a part of that. But I was curious. You exist because of your ancestors. That's the Bible.
Wow, okay. That was heavy. Right, that was heavy, right? Well, let's flip that coin, right? Because it's all the same coin, you're just gonna flip it, right? Now, families exist, so you guys know I'm a sociologist by training, right? Okay, so families exist within a structure, right? Within a society that dictates how families operate. Are there some structural things we can understand, because we all live in black families? A few of us don't, right? Most of us have seen black families, right? So we know what black families are, right? So we understand how they operate. But we also all live within a larger society that influences how that family operates, right? Are there also, so acknowledging, absolutely, family is a big part of it. Are there other things outside of family? Are there structures? Are there rules? Are there regulations? Are there laws? Are there things that exist that also hinder? Because family can be a part of it. Are there other things that are happening? Just
Like, we have to address that as well, like, and that goes back to leadership and voting, because who we vote for, you're right, it's circular, because who we vote for affects how the economy looks. How the economy looks affects how my family looks. Like, we spent a generation talking about dads not being in the home. Well, dad was at work. And dads were in prison. And dads were selling drugs on the street. Like, we can deal with all of it. But there was something that was pulling folks out of the home that wasn't just a failure of parents. There were societal things that pulled people out. And continue. I dare say it's worse now. Because at least my parents didn't have a college conversation. My mom graduated from high school and went right to Michigan Middle. My grandfather and other uncles, they graduated high school or not. Some didn't even have to graduate high school, went right to GM and all the 12 GM plants that was in town. This generation don't have that. So they're looking at a society that's blaming them for not having a legacy job. That has degrees and working at Wendy's, and we just gonna blame them and wag our fingers at them like y'all ain't doing what y'all need to do. What? I did do what I need to do. I graduated college. You didn't even graduate college. I graduated college. And I don't even make what you made on a high school diploma. We have to deal with that.
We have a comment here.
We have people within this room who can provide that, give them the opportunity to go through the political, the leadership, the economics, the whole piece that we can do ourselves, and then give young people an opportunity to be able to participate and to graduate from their leadership program to later become elected officials, become people who are involved, become people who are planning and moving ahead. The second thing I want to say also, if I could, when we look at all the empty houses around the city of Saginaw, and we have a homeless population, particularly veterans, why can't we come together as churches and other organizations, put those houses back in good repute, and then put homeless people in them? They work out the gas payments and everything else. But we can come together with people who are skilled trades, and at the same time give that journeyman an opportunity to learn on the job, yet providing housing which are eyesores to this community, repair those and put people who are homeless in them and allow them to have a place to stay, and not tearing down all those which we know that may have solid foundations. So there's a number of things we can do. taking our leadership, like I see the judge and a few more people, I see Thorns and I see some other elected officials. And then number 3, holding them accountable. Because they're your friend means nothing to me. I don't care about your friendship. What I want you to do when I step into that booth, and this is what young people are looking at, act like who you are. Dr. King demonstrated who he was. He took the risk to get out there and march for us. Elected officials, black, white, brown, or red, do your job. Let me hold you accountable for what you do. Back in the day, we used to have grades, A, B, C, D. You familiar with that in school? Grade your elected officials. Give them an A or an F. F, if you don't mind, is not full on your gas tank. It's fair. We need to hold people accountable because they, in fact, make the decisions. And then when our young people see people who are responsible, who are trying to do something, and who are reaching out to them, then, in fact, you may vote because I now see that what I am doing means something. And I see people who are in positions, adults, if you will, are doing something to earn that vote for me to get out at that age and do something.
Mic drop. All right. So the issue of flexibility with, as we age, we need to be a bit more flexible and understanding of new lenses. All right, and I know that many of us have seen, right, some inflexible older folks. We think just because we get old, we get wiser.
There were old folks in this community, and that's just that.
Wow. Wow. So how do we, okay, go ahead.
So I don't want to piggyback off of what anybody said. I hear everybody talk about young people. I'm going to be quite frank and talk about the old stubborn people who don't want to be adaptable and make changes efficiently and effectively to help these young people, because it ain't all those young person's left. You got a young person, you train them up, and you guide them, and you mold them in the way that they should go. And a lot of these young people have older, stubborn people who will not make adaptations to what is needed or show up to what is needed because they tired, or they got this, or they don't got time to deal with these young people with these attitudes, because I see this daily working with these young people. Yes, we are tired of them and their attitudes are short, but if you're not in it to win it, then we all lose it, because you have to be adaptable to these young people. You have to reach them where they are at exactly, and not set your expectation up here for them, but get down there with them on what they know, so you can rise into stubborn old folks in this community, and that's just that.
Wow. Wow. So the issue of flexibility with, as we age, we need to be a bit more flexible and understanding of new lenses. All right, and I know that many of us have seen, right, some inflexible older folks. We think just because we get old, we get wiser.
To be friends, because I was listening to all of y'all and I sit here like amazed. All the wisdom I'm getting is amazing, but I have to piggyback on what she said. When he brought up family and when he brought up like holding people accountable, I gotta hold my older generation accountable, because even my own grandma, like, we have to be able to change and adapt and realize that not every young person is going to be a Christian. Not every, like, these simple things in the home that we have to realize, okay, I'm home with my child, even though they might be different. And then we bring in the autism aspect of it, the ADHD aspect of it, that we're just not accepting it. But I just had to, I had to piggyback on her.
A response. I believe that they raised some legitimate
I'll
issues.
piggyback on it.
Wait 1 second. I have one that you want to listen to.
Give my
And we also want to
Give my
listen to. All right.
So, hi, my name is Barbara Roseman. I'm currently elected and serving on the program. It was specifically a voter registration program in the county of Saginaw. I registered with my team, we had 2 fellows, 1,300 young people. And it was an incredibly successful program. But what I have learned in running for office, interacting with as many young people as possible, is that I teach people about power and how power works. Because I think that we're all lied to when it comes to politics. That's the way it works. And politicians lie with their money. If you understand how a campaign works, who knows what VAN is?
What?
VAN, in terms of electoral politics, VAN. Okay, it's a very basic tool. It's called the Voter Activation activation network. It's a database that almost every single campaign uses. And it's based off of how often you vote. So you can look up anybody in the voter activation network database, find out where they live, who they are, their voting history, their complete address, their age, how often they voted, what elections they voted in, what primaries they voted in. It can even, it's an aggregate data software. So people get in there and it says, you're likely Democrat, you're likely Republican, you are likely to vote in this election, you're likely this demographic, that demographic. And if you do not vote, you're not in that system. And if you do not vote, a politician will not send you a piece of mail. You will not show up on a call list. So the number one thing that I told young people when I was working at SBSU and at Delta was very effective. The number one thing I heard is why young people do it's on them. And I said, that's not on you. All right, this is a system that is designed to keep, because if you have people, think about this, if you have people who vote, the less money politicians have to spend on winning. Let me say that again. The fewer people who vote, the less money politicians have to spend on winning. So, it is not in their interest to have a huge amount of people voting every cycle that they can't predict. And young people are generationally unpredictable. So, what I used to tell people is, here's how the system works. Here's how you can go look up campaign finance. Here's how you know who really is paying for the politics you see up on that screen. Who is paying for it, how much money they're spending, who's donating that money, who's contributing that money to tell you who to vote for and what you should make, who's determining the framework of this election.
Now, Harley, wrap it back around to leadership.
So I think that the way that power picks leaders is by people who follow their definition of power. They fit into that framework. So if they don't think that you can raise the most money, you're not going to be selected for leadership. They don't want leaders who can increase turnout because that costs them more money. So being in these conversations, watching people, go from run their own elections, you learn how the system works. You can win. You learn how to activate your community in a way that you can multiply. You can win. You don't have to be a chosen person for leadership. You can choose to learn how things work. You can learn how to use tools like band to your advantage. You can learn the system. You can learn the deficiencies of it and exploit it.
Absolutely. Oh, Karen, I want you to respond to. Come on now. They made some accusations.
Oh, I got
You got the
little one over here.
Come on.
We're going to talk about you, Christian, later. I have a question for Vanessa. We need to be picking up the mama, the daddy, the kids, whoever needs a ride. Because they're not going to learn values in the home. They're going to learn amongst people who have values. Then the school system. We got to have some guts to say, your mama needs to come, your daddy needs to come to teachers conference for you to play on that basketball team. Okay? Because there's no excuse for them to come to school, come to school, practice, play games, and the parent can bring them and pick them up. They can't spend some time in that building with them, worried and concerned about their education. Required parent participation. When Urban Baby first opened up the academy, there was a requirement that parents had to put some time in with their children. That probably lasted maybe 3 years. But we just have to have some tough love for the parents because they need that along with the children. We just got to have some guts to do it.
Wow, okay. Thank you. A lot was said. But we still haven't addressed what the young folks said at that, right? They shots was fired. I see y'all with gray beards and, right?
To address what Sean be on about 2 years ago, I was asked to be on a committee to help bring up young leaders. And it was sponsored by one of our leading organizations that deal with us. But when I came to those meetings, I was already the executive director here. And there was other people who were younger adults who had professional positions who was trying to tell the leaders what the younger people wanted. And after a while, all the young professionals stopped coming. And then I was the last one who stopped coming. And the reason why I stopped coming, as we were walking out the door talking to each other, was that if they're going to tell us what the young people want, why do we need to be sitting here? And so they watched all the young professionals who had a zeal to get the elections. Was the last presidential election back in 12? No, not 12. What was it? 2016. And in 2020, it was 2020. So that election, we were trying to get the presidential election and all the other elected officials elected to get the young people involved. But the problem was that they didn't want to listen to what they wanted to do. Any of the ideas, any of the new hybrid ideas, any of the parties they wanted to throw. They were trying to throw some parties on campus. They were trying to do some different things, talk on social media. But the leaders said, let's do it this way. And when the leaders who are much older than us said, let's do it this way, they lost it. So when I talk to them, when I see here what Shawnee said and what others said, we gotta listen and we gotta allow the young people to go the way they think they need to go. And then as wisdom, give them guidance and support. Give them guidance, structure, and support, but let them do the major digging so that they can reach their generation the way they know how.
On what we need to do in order to reach another board or organization that you are on. Let's not ask them just to be on a committee. We don't want them just to serve. We want them to lead in those spaces, right? Okay, so let's keep that in mind when we go and sit at that next board meeting. All right, don't want to hold you too much longer. We do have another topic. What is our next topic? Black health. Do we have an individual who's going to share on black health? Oh, Mr.
We're more likely to have high blood pressure, but we're less likely to go to the doctor. Black men are significantly lower in that stat. Let's talk about cancer. Blacks have higher rates of certain cancers like colon cancer, prostate cancer, stomach cancer, so on and so forth. Non-Hispanic black women are 40% more likely to die from breast cancer than white women. Diabetes, a lot of us, the sugar, we call it the older folks call it sugar. So blacks are 50% more likely to be diagnosed with diabetes and over twice as likely to die from it. Get to HIV and AIDS. Black people are nearly 8 times more likely to be diagnosed with HIV than whites. A big one that we've done a lot of activism around black infant mortality and those rates. Black maternal mortality is the highest in the United States at 69.9 deaths per dose. That's 70 per 100K. Black infants also have 2.4 times the mortality rate of white infants. And black mothers experience higher preterm birth rates and lower breastfeeding rates. Let's look at some underlying factors. So, of course, like all of these topics, they're rooted, much of it is rooted in systemic racism. Economic factors, poverty, which is something we don't talk about. I think that's something, we need to have a whole poverty summit. We have to talk about poverty. It's like we're scared to say we're poor. And we're scared to deal with poor people. We can go back to leadership on that because some of our leaders don't want to deal with poor people. Lack of access to quality housing, education, and healthcare. The presence of food deserts and environmental hazards. 68,000 Americans die each year due to the lack of health care. The cause of bankruptcy in America is medical debt. And then we deal with historical trauma. The legacy of slavery. A lot of what we deal with is throughout the legacy of slavery. It jumps through generations. Still dealing with segregation, especially in housing. And discrimination continues to impact health outcomes. And what drives, implicit bias in health outcomes? Unconscious biases in healthcare settings, which can lead to disparity. All right? Thank you.
All right. Any thoughts? all these, like, they seem kind of disparate in terms of how we're addressing them.
Right behind you.
But I think that there are some, but there are some commonalities. You have your hand up?
Yes. And that's what I wanted to speak to. It was the fact that everything that was listed is preventable. Everything that is listed is preventable. So when we think of that, and then we see the alarming differences in the numbers, one has to think, is this on purpose? Is some of this, this can't be, that some of this has to be by design. That was my thoughts.
Wow. Yes, this.
Comment was that when I looked at, heard what you were saying, and it was not mentioned, a lot of this has to do also with mental illness. I don't go, when you look at persons with mental illness, then I don't go to the doctor. I don't listen to what maybe the doctor said, et cetera, et cetera. It's a big thing. And I will not, because it may take too long to deal with the mental health facility, with the opera funds. It's not actually there, but that's another day. It would take too long. But had we had the wherewithal and things went the proper way, because the coronavirus started, 3-4 years ago, a lot of people have behind the virus, and things just didn't happen. That's enough. It's definitely fear, because we fear, a lot of people fear the unknown. And that's not just in the Black community, but it's overwhelmingly, in my opinion, in our community. I know myself, sometimes I don't want to hear it. We just fear the unknown. And we don't want to hear it because mama had it, grandma had it. It's been in the family. So we don't want to go because we don't want to hear the answer. But it's best to go. Early detection, no matter what it is best early than later. Because sometimes later is too late. And we probably lost, maybe, I know I have lost loved ones because of fear and too late.
It ain't the drill, it's the real.
Oh, that's so the cost could be an issue, not only fear.
And to tap into what he's saying, I feel like a lot of men have a problem with getting health care. They offer it to women with children so easily. We can get it as long as we have a child to take care of. They make sure we're taken care of so that we can take care of the children. But the fathers are important to be healthy too. So I think that leadership needs to pick up and make sure that every man is taken care of out here, because he leaves the home. He shows them to go to the doctor. He tells them the things to do to take care of themselves. He is the person who is supposed to be telling them the things to take them out of fear. He needs to be educated, because a lot of the fear comes from miseducation. They don't know about the things that they're going to check on, so they're afraid of it. But when you learn things, a lot of fear fades away with knowledge. So if you know that you can go in and take a simple treatment or change your diet and your blood pressure will go down by 50%, you'll be more apt for doctors to help you treat those things than to be
for yourself. And when you have loved ones that are in the hospital, you absolutely should be there with them, advocating for them, making sure that they're getting the things that they're supposed to have. With mothers, in my own experience, my grandson was born 2 months early because his mother was sent home from the hospital twice. And they told her that her pain wasn't at the level that she was telling them that it was, and they didn't do all of the proper tests. So when you know your body better than any doctor. I don't care what kind of degree they have, you're you. When you know that something isn't right, you advocate for yourself. And if they're not listening to you, then you ask to speak to someone above them, because you have that right, and people don't really know that.
As a parent of 2 Black males, before you take the position, know what the benefits are, so that way when you go
out there, you are covered and you need to go to the doctor, go to the doctor. Call 911, that's what it's there for. Encouraging your own children.
Some of y'all go to work to get great health insurance plans and don't go see a doctor. Exhaust them and make these people that y'all are paying good money for earn their keep. Please do the work, because not all of it is for lack of resources. Some of us are just lazy.
I did a healthcare initiative a few years back, and I want to share some of the things. I think that, I don't know if this one exists, but we have like a healthcare committee. And I think that it would be important if we can adopt a healthcare committee for our community and to advocate for some of those things that we're talking about. I got like 4 things here that, the committee could probably, build, like build a community healthcare complaint hotline and survey, like what we're doing now, town hall meetings addressing community issues with healthcare. Collaborate with healthcare professionals in our local areas, create healthcare action that will address and investigate valid complaints from citizens and promote health prevention and treatment through training and awareness. Because we do have all these issues still exist, and how can we gradually, and I think a lot of things too, we look at the changes that we need to make. We all have to understand that when we start, whatever we come together to do, we got to come together to do it first. And then saying that it's going to have to be a gradual change. And a lot of people look for instant gratification. We can't get that in what we're trying to do here. We have to think about the generations now, and the trends now are already set. We talk about young folks a lot of times. We talk about young people. People in their mind think about high school and those age kids, but we have to think about the population like 25 to 35, 37. They grown and they got a mind of their own. And so, trying to reach that population. But coming back to health, I don't know if anybody can answer the question though, but do we have to prepare an action committee from some of the medical professionals that's here in our community that might want to put together so we can investigate to make sure that healthcare is equitable in our communities, and then this healthcare is accessible to everyone. All right, because like we said, we have a poor community, right? If people don't have jobs, they might not have the best healthcare.
I'm glad that you asked that question. To note that Joyce Seals is chairing the Health Equity Council. Okay, so there are opportunities for us to engage in these kinds of conversations. Believe that her daughter is she still the medical director? Still the medical director, Alicia Cruz, still the medical director at the county health department, Saginaw County Health Department. So we have people in places. We just need to know how to access those people. Right? Right. Beautiful. There's a question here.
People are able to read, write, and learn to code.
That's good. That's good.
Let's do that first. As a former substitute teacher here in Saginaw, teaching 4th through 6th grade for 2 years at Success, most little babies can't read. Between preschool, 1st and 2nd grade, and if you follow them home, their parents can't read either. So all that they're saying doesn't mean anything to these families. They are living paycheck to paycheck. The education that they have before them jobs at Taco Bell with their teenage child, right? And so if we don't start there and educating these families, getting them the support services they need and early on, addressing mental health, addressing families that have autistic children because we're afraid to say there's something going on with my child. And so now we're punishing 6th grade kids for being ADHD because they don't have support services. Like we tend to skim over those things and get to topics like politics. Well, I can't vote if I can't read. I can't be productive in my society if I can't read. I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I'm flipping tables, I'm being kicked out of my school. My mother can't deal with me because she does not quite know what's going on because nobody traced the bloodline. Got honest about the mental health. I'm just making babies. Right? We're not really dealing with the underlying issues. We're not really talking about the mental and emotional traumas that these young people that you're talking about are dealing with every day, and they're not able to socially and emotionally regulate. dealing with those things. We're talking about diabetes, HIV, cancer, but we're not changing our habits. These children are coming to school with Takis and Mountain Dews, and they're overloaded on sugar, and they're up till 4 a.m. because mama got 15 kids and they gotta take care of 4 till 4 a.m. They can't get to the rest of this stuff y'all talking about. They can't. Let's deal with the trauma first, right? And getting them into spaces where they can start to get the support services they need. We got a lot of after-school programs. Success requires parents to show up for their children in parent training, but they also allow for children to stay for a little while longer if the mama don't come, right? Somebody's making money off these babies and off of our families, right? So there's a deeper level of conversation that has to be had here, and it doesn't start with voters' rights, not by far.
Say what they should be doing, but they aren't in the room. So we know that there are resources available to them, but are we getting them the resources? My sister back there, I love you, girl. Do you know I just found out that they offer rides? I'm a 2-time breast cancer survivor. Did not know that my insurance would offer rides. This is stuff that the medical field isn't telling us. And when you're going through something like that, you don't know to ask. We talk about benefits, yes, but even with benefits, after the second time being diagnosed, I'm still $600. My employer pays their part, but I'm still paying $600 out of my check for the premium. Then I have co-pays on top of that. Then I have medication, prescription costs on top of that. So it's not designed for us to basically get ahead while trying to heal ourselves. So we have to be able to share this information with the people. So for me, I'm passionate about cancer patients and survivors, so I'm trying to figure out how I get this information to the patients once they get that word, oh, you have cancer. Because they're not going to think, okay, is there help with my bills? Can my insurance provide a ride if I don't get to these appointments? So we're here, but the people that need to hear it probably don't even know about the need, don't have a way to get here. We got to figure out how to get out there to them and get them the resources that everybody has talked about in this room tonight.
It's a great dialogue. And not just that people are speaking, but from the heart, people are listening from the heart. So when I grew up, it was the era of Black is Beautiful. It was the era of Black Power. And I came through that generation. Now, I'm the lightest skinned Black person in the room. And always have been. I came to a Nation of Islam rally where I was the lightest skinned Black person in the room. So what is Black? I love Black people. Do Black people love Black people? When I look at the younger generation, I'm afraid. But not afraid. Whatever comes out of a meeting like this, you gotta organize. You're gonna reach people, you gotta organize. The Black pastors, I'm looking at you, heard we call them, gotta organize together, not to separate denominations and churches, etc. Black leadership. And when Black people in Saginaw get there, you know what, together. Young people will say it. When they get it together, the other communities will support. The corporate will support. The white allies will support. The Latinos, well, they really disorganized. At any rate, they will support. But Black people have to get it together in this community with each other. Black unity. The Black family, yes, but what is the definition of the Black family? Brothers and sisters, are you family also? Do we broaden that definition? Y'all on this level of Saginaw, with Dawn Hinton, with Angela Williams in health, with Black President Saginaw Valley, with the Jeffrey Bowles, with Michael Lawrence Webster, well, I gave him Lawrence too. You could do something, but not without organizing. The Black Arts Festival, which has been going on for, I still call it Black Arts Festival, so the beauty of that. I know it's an African festival, I call it Black Arts Festival. So that is a great event, okay? That is a tremendous event. Does it come off without organization? No, it takes a lot of work. It took work to organize this meeting. So, organize.
Right, I heard you in my heart, and I want to sit here with our heart. But what I also want you to recognize is that the fact that we are here is an indication that we are unified and looking for that solution, which is why we all came together in this space. So I want to say to you, because I got to work tomorrow, just like many of us got to work tomorrow, right? I came out of my time, right? Because I'm committed to what happens in our communities. You came out of your time because you are committed. And so we don't take that lightly at all. We understand the sacrifice that it is for you to be in this space, right? Not only the sacrifice, but the commitment that you have to your people. The commitment that you have to your people in Saginaw, the commitment that you have to Black folks in Saginaw. We understand that and respect that, right? Let's have one more comment and then we'll move on to our final topic.
With public officials, but not enough people willing to hold public officials accountable. Saginaw is not lacking. Saginaw is a mastermind. Saginaw will be great with or without Black people. I say that for a reason. Because the word gentrification, there is a reason for gentrification. So we need to make sure we know who we're selling ourselves out to before we begin to vote on just names alone. Yes, I got out of my busy schedule to come here because I needed to make sure that that was said. Elections are over. Yeah, we mourn today. Some of us mourn. Some of us don't mourn. Because some of us sold the ship. Some of us gave our community away. And now I'm not going, some things sometimes you just got to say the weird things, okay? You just got to say that none of y'all talked to the Black people during the primary because y'all didn't want them to come out and vote. But soon as it was time for the general, y'all had them together, hair as wall size, acting like we didn't see that y'all was running the congressional and the Senate race on top of the Black woman who was running for election. So there's still some grief. And some of y'all don't want to say that y'all let white people in this city tear up even the good people of color that we do have. And then y'all still make deals with them and get dollars from them and don't hold them accountable. I'm sorry, I'm passionate about the situation. Because you call me the angry Black man for saying the truth. But the truth is, what I have to prove to you is that 2026 is around the corner. The man in the back is right. It is time to work. But the issue is not with just Black people. I will not continue to put the burden on my people. Because the people that you're talking about did not have the privilege of being white. These people built these communities. Their family is always the one behind. The wealth gap is still continuing to grow. And I want to put that Black woman under a bus. I watched that several Democrats in our primary put that Black woman under a bus and rolled over her. And you think that I'm going to sit here and be calm? No, because I know of your private deals behind the scene. The truth is, in our community, there's more than just a vision. There's underhanded, backbiting, loser mentality. I'm willing to sell out because there's a dollar for me. Not knowing that I'm setting up my community for the next 10 years. The state of the Black community is bigger than just an election. Health is important. Our people are dying on the hospital bed and not getting the justice that they deserve. The justice like this country was built on their backs. How many times I went to the state in Lansing and seen that no one was there, but they were on a Zoom call. They couldn't come meet with a group of people from Saginaw, but yet and still you selected them. You selected them and they will be turning their back on you. work. Not just the black people. I speak with passion because I know a change is going to come. But my people have been waiting for a change for 100 years while the people continue to sell them out. So yes, it's time to work. But privilege needs to work too. If you got privilege, we don't have time to educate your people. You're always trying to educate our people. Educate yours. You tell them when they're wrong. You get them corrected when they sit up and look at today we mourn. No, I'm telling all the truth because it needs to be told. And I've held my breath a long time. To primary August 6th to November 5th. Lost my election and I'm still here after that too. The truth is going to set us free. Tell the truth and shame the devil.
We are all valuable in this fight, right? We all have a voice, and I appreciate that he chose to use his voice in the way he chose to use his voice. We needed to hear that, right? We needed to hear what he had to say, so I'm certainly grateful for him sharing. It is 7:48, right? We're supposed to be done at 8 o'clock. I don't want to move on to another topic and then have like 2 minutes for him to talk so we can go home. So let's see if there are any final thoughts. Brother almost wrapped it up for us. Almost. There are opportunities for us to continue to discuss. Yes, sir.
Fast until something's done. I want to make a comment or two about what I think is probably one of the most critical issues currently facing Saginaw. And I'm going to suggest that it's time to declare a gun violence state of emergency in the city. The echo of gunfire can be heard throughout our city. The body count continues to grow. For over 20 years, the FBI has consistently ranked Saginaw as one of the most dangerous cities in the country. Take a look at the statistics for just the last 3 years. 2024, Saginaw was the second most dangerous city in 1.62 per 1,000 people, one of the highest in the country. 2023, Saginaw was the most violent city in Michigan and the fourth most violent in the country. We passed Detroit. Our overall crime rate was 79% higher than the national average. Our violent crime rate was 473% higher than the national average, 5 times. 1921, Saginaw was the most violent city in Michigan again. And if you were going to go back for the next 20 years, last 20 years, that's where you'll find us. According to the Children's Defense Fund's 2023 report entitled The State of America's Children, 2023, gun violence is the #1 cause of death for children across the country, 1 to 19. The death rate increased by nearly 40% from 2017 to 2021 and is still increasing. In 2021, we lost 13 children a day, the highest number ever recorded. Now listen carefully. From 2000 to 2020, the black youth rate from 10 to 19 years old experienced a 78% increase in suicide. Black children 5 to 12 years old, twice their white peers. Black teen suicides are growing at an alarming rate. To understand Saginaw's violent crime rate and the crisis, you have to understand the dynamic. These include a declining manufacturing base, high unemployment, widespread poverty, underperforming schools, and Saginaw's unique form of apartheid. These factors have created an environment and culture where gun violence and crime can flourish in the city. Any comprehensive solution must recognize the relationship between education and unemployment, poverty and crime, broken families and drugs and hopelessness, etc. Why do they seem to handle gun violence, crime, etc. much better than Saginaw? why has Saginaw consistently been one of the most violent cities in the state of the country? What are other cities doing that we're not doing? What programs and services are they offering that we're not? Is it a question of budget? Is it a question of leadership? Pontiac has the same issues. Flint has the same issues. Detroit has the same issues. Why is everybody having these issues rather than Saginaw? We can tell you why. It might take more than the next 5 or 6 minutes.
Right. And the CAP is an opportunity to think about what your plan will be for the city of Saginaw as we move forward. One of the challenges that I want to give to you and your team is to keep us informed, right? We come out to this forum, we done said a whole lot of stuff, we done spent our time here, we've given you some information. In the same way that Brother Charles said that we need to hold everybody accountable, we're going to hold you accountable, right? So we didn't share just to share. We shared because we wanted to see something done, right? So let's give them one last hand, and I'm going to turn it over to
what the community says, and we advocate for you. Like a lot of people only see on Facebook, they only see, my ranting or, what I mean, and the things that we do, like forums like this, but the dirty work happens behind the scenes. Ms. Monique can tell you, we talk all the time. Also people like Carly, we talk all the time because there's work to be done. Y'all talk, we receive it, and then we're taking it to City Hall. We're taking it to the county commission. Mike, I'm gonna see you soon. Hey, that's what we do. That's the essence of Saginaw Cap. And so I want to thank y'all so much. I want to bring somebody who's also a part of Saginaw Cap, somebody that's a huge mentor to us. He's, everything to us. And I would go on all day. He has a long list of accomplishments and things that he does, but he's our guy, the one and only Mr. Bishop Curley.
Thanks, Jerry. The first thing I want to tell you all is that the worst thing that you can do is leave this conversation out of the gripe session. Say, I'm not going to go back to any of those meetings because all people do is complain. That's the worst thing that you can do because that's exactly what happened. People did complain and give their opinions about issues that were significant to them. That's the first worst thing. The second worst thing you can do is leave out of this room and do nothing. Every one of the issues that brought up has a line connecting it to some organization, some structure, some group. This meeting happened because somebody planned it. I promise you. There's another meeting being planned for tomorrow to deal with some of the very things that you're concerned about. And if you're not there, they will plan on you. I have been a part of CAP since the first conversation happened. Until the conversation happened, the individual said that there's inflexible older people. I never knew I was going to be this old. Now, I never expected to be an older guy that people look to. But the joy in my heart, and the joy of my life, is being able to sit with Jeff and the rest of the team and just share with them my perspective, hear their perspective, and then work with them. I don't need to be up front getting the credit. Many organizations that have started in this community, people don't know I started it because I didn't try to make myself in charge of it. I mean, there's people in this community that they got their first job because I hired them. And they retired from the community, they got retirement, now they get retirement. Unselfish leadership is what's required now, as well as unselfish dedication. Everybody in this room needs to take ownership of what you heard tonight. And if you don't have passion, If you don't have passion about something, then you're living an empty life. You gotta have passion and then connect it with a purpose. I believe tonight, it's time for us to do this, y'all. We can turn this tide. We got time to fix it. We gotta work together. We gotta quit trying to be the only one. We gotta quit trying to be the first one. We gotta let somebody else lead. I'm happy to be led by Jeff Bulls and Cap. He's taller than me. You don't have no old guy swag, but he got his own swag. Can we just start following y'all? Can we do that? Can we don't just because somebody has a great event, don't you go try to have another event just like this? Can we do that? Black people to Michigan representing our community. And I was unafraid and unapologetic by telling other politicians, I'm sorry, I can't support you. I did last time, but not this time because I got 2 black folks I can support. Whether they win or not, they are not going to do anything without me supporting them. What would happen if a black community didn't try to escape being black and support, say I'm supporting black women, I don't like white. Saginaw. Conversation had to happen. The last thing that I'll say before I give Jeff asked me to give a closing prayer. And I told him all the time, if I can't do anything else, I can pray. God knows, and every time I sit down in a group of people, I wind up having more to pray about than I did when I said this the first time. But a few months ago, maybe about 8 months ago, I sat down with a group of people about a candidate that I was really, really committed to. And I told them that for the first time in my life, I will be unapologetically black all the time. Thank you. 2 people clapped their hands. Because whether I say it or not, when I walk into a room, I'm automatically black. I don't care how middle of the road I be. I don't care how hard I work to try to blend in with everybody. At the end of the day, I am a black man. So my filter for decisions that I make need to be made based on what I believe is important for black people. My heart broke, y'all, because for the first time in my 71-year-old history, for the first time we had an opportunity to, our God, who has been our help in ages past, as we sit in this room and stand together. There's nothing we can say that's new to you. There's no discovery we can come up that will surprise you. In fact, what you heard tonight, you've heard it before. But we can go back to that place where one people had one mind, had one vision, had one thought, and you said that nothing that they imagined would be withheld from them. Give us a unity of purpose. Give us a unity of spirit. Give us unselfish love for one another and an unselfish desire to see great things happen. This is our community, a beloved community, and we pray that you help us to do our part. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.